Have you ever felt like an imposter? You know that feeling that no matter how much you achieve, no matter how many times people pay you a compliment, no matter what the awards or the degrees or the promotions say to the outside, on the inside, you don't feel successful. You feel like you are masquerading as some imposter, and pretty soon people are going to figure out that you really have no idea what you're doing, or that all of your success is somehow really related more towards luck or being in the right place at the right time. If you experience this on a chronic basis, this feeling like you're an imposter masquerading around in your own life, you're not alone. Close to 70% of the population has experienced what we call the imposter syndrome. Psychologists have been studying the imposter syndrome since the 70s. It's not a disease and it's not a disorder, but it is life-limiting. It holds us back from our success and from truly standing in our own lives with confidence. But there are 3 things that we can do to end the imposter syndrome. Let's get to them. One of the first things that we absolutely must do to change that feeling of being an imposter is to first become real. What that really means is to show up in your fullest, most authentic self. Now, we hear a lot about authenticity, but it takes courage. It takes courage to be able to show up in your life, in your work, in your relationships, in your job, with both your strengths and your weaknesses fully in hand, commingled together, not hiding from the mistakes, not hiding from the things that you feel inadequate about, and then quietly shaming yourself, but rather owning the fact that you are human and that you do have both. Once we start accepting the fact that we are not great at everything, that there's a learning curve, that we have weaknesses and gifts that are fully combined, we can become more comfortable within our own skin and become more real. And then you don't have to fake it. Then you're not feeling like an imposter. When I wrote my book, Put on Your Big Girl Shoes, it was my goal to interview successful and famous women to find out what they had to whisper to themselves to get around that feeling of being an imposter, to fully stand in their courage, to be their most genuine and authentic self, and then ultimately to find their success. And so Put on Your Big Girl Shoes was a compilation of a number of these interviews, but one of them particularly stood out for me, and that was the interview that I had the privilege of doing with Rachel Maddow. One of the things she talks about is getting accepted into Stanford. She felt like was a fluke of nature, that she had, and I'm quoting her, stolen some deserving person's spot and that she was going to be discovered. There are a number of other famous people who talk about that. Meryl Streep talks about pretty soon we're going to figure out that she really doesn't know how to act. I mean, could you imagine Meryl Streep? Or Maya Angelou, that each time she writes, she worries and fears that we're going to figure out she's been running a scam on us, that she's really not a writer. And you don't even have to look at famous and amazingly successful women to know about this syndrome. Many women talk about little successes or big successes often feel like a disconnect. That imposter syndrome or feeling rises up inside of us. Being authentic is the cure for feeling like an imposter. And number 2 is to confront our fear of failing. Let's be honest, nobody likes to fail. But we all know that every time we fail, if we do it right, and failing is a skill, we learn something from that. It gives us our strength. It builds our resilience for coping, for learning new strategies in our business and in our life. But when we're so afraid of failing, because there's this quiet voice inside of us that says, I'll be embarrassed. What will other people think of me? For many women, there's also that feeling of we have to work twice as hard to prove ourselves. Maybe there were messages that said you don't really belong here. You have to earn your spot to be here. You have to work a little bit harder than your male counterpart. If you are a minority, the message gets even louder. So for many of us, there is that feeling that failing is not really an option because 1, it's humiliating, it's embarrassing, and it proves those messages right that we don't really belong here, wherever here is. So part of getting out of feeling like an imposter is to face that message square on. Whatever message told you that you don't belong, you need to counter that with, I am here, and I belong because, and then you fill in the blanks of all the things we did in step 1, which is knowing your strengths and knowing your weaknesses. Why do you belong where you are? Believing in yourself and believing that you have earned a right to be in the spot that you are in is part of facing that fear of failing or of being embarrassed or of reinforcing that message that yes, they were right, you really don't belong here, is the second step of moving out of being an imposter. And the third step is really all about helping and reinforcing this message with other people. Feeling like an imposter is a pretty self-focused act. You know, we're analyzing ourselves, we're thinking about ourselves, we're worrying about how we're being perceived, we're engaging in an act, but we have a quiet little ongoing dialogue going in the back of our mind, wondering, what are you thinking about me? And did that sound stupid? Or they're all clapping, but I'm wondering if they're only clapping just to be polite. All of that ongoing running script forces us to stay so self-focused that it prevents us from connecting with other people. And it is in the connection with other people that we find we're all really in this together. Everybody has experienced that feeling of inadequacy, of feeling embarrassed or feeling like an imposter. And when we support and help somebody else get outside of that feeling, in turn, we feel better about ourselves. So those are 3 steps that you can take to end that feeling of being an imposter and stand firmly in your life and thrive.